So today I'm going to be continuing our series, The Jesus Way, following on from Chris, who opened us up with teaching on worry, and Rebecca last week helping us look into what it means to be salt and light. When choosing a section or a topic on the Sermon on the Mount, I've learned over time about myself what I love to delve into and explore is relationships. And they can quite often be the most complicated, frustrating, yet joyful and life-giving things of what it means to be human. The values that lead us to become the best version of who we are, how we move towards that continually, and who it is around us to join us on that journey in the many seasons of life and chapters. I happen to find myself in this season and have the great privilege to be the youth pastor here. Whatever season we find ourselves in, all of this, we are all led by one person, Jesus, teaching us what it means to be his physical presence in the world. So much of my own journey with God has been hugely shaped by the relationships I've had along the way, not only with others, but the greatest journey has been with myself. It is my personal belief that the greatest and most impactful relationship we will ever have, whether we call ourselves Christian or not, is with ourselves. All other relationships will be directly influenced by this one. And for those of us who call ourselves Christian, how we shape the journey of the relationship with ourselves is primarily drawn from learning and following the ways, values, the vision and the example of Jesus. Quite a tall order for a rainy Sunday morning. So thankfully, we also have the great help of the Holy Spirit, who aids us on this great expedition we call life. So with all that in mind, I don't have a great deal of time, but I will do what I can to help us delve into a section from Matthew 7, verses 1 to 12. Oh, can I have control of the PowerPoint? Thank you. In many Bibles, these passages have been given the subheadings of judging others, followed by ask, seek, and knock. So when looking into this, I put these two sections together in this one talk under the heading Restorative Relationships. So hopefully I can dig this out a bit for us, give us some ideas and maybe something for us to run forward with. Let's dive in. And next slide, please. We'll do whatever we need to do. So reading from Matthew 7, verses 1 to 12. So this is reading from the NIV version, New International Version. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. And then we move into the subsection of ask, seek, and knock. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, the door will be opened. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? So in everything, Do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. So there's quite a lot there, but the main thing I was focusing on here was judgment. Nice light topic. What does the word judgment bring up for you? What comes to mind? A courtroom with a jury and a judge presiding? Perhaps some experiences of being on the receiving end of judgment, being misunderstood. Or sometimes, myself included, finding ourselves at the sharp end of judging others and realising too late that we have misunderstood somebody else. I've had my share of those experiences. I'm sure all of us have had that too, to some extent. But there's a duality in judgment, particularly as I quite often encountered a phrase with people who aren't Christian. And I used to say this myself before I became a Christian. You're a Christian, which means you aren't allowed to judge other people. So all of those kind of little sayings, I just can't help myself but question, and I'll keep going and going and going until I find an answer, and then I'll go even more to try and find a further answer, or just to try and think, where did this come from? What do people mean behind it? And this poses a quandary. If this is true, how are we to decide between ourselves what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what's neither, or what's both? There is one way of judging everyone and everything, and another way of judging nobody and nothing. But as is the Jesus approach, we see time and time again, he teaches us a third way. Can I have slide 7, please? So looking into this, I found this Greek word, the base word for judgment, is a word called krino. So researching it, I found a very, very nice excerpt from the Bible Project when they looked into this. And rather than try and rephrase it, I thought I would just quote them because how they've summarised it was very, very good. And next slide, please, Mark. So the Greek word used for judgment is krino, which can mean both to discern and to condemn. Jesus urges us to avoid condemning others and instead to practice self-reflection and humility. By teaching that we'll be judged by the same standard that we use to judge others, he encourages compassion over condemnation. So judgment can follow particular paths depending on the context and our approach. Do we come at it in discernment or condemnation? So I then thought I would continue our theme of having some English lessons. Thank you, Chris and Rebecca, for continuing this. I was then looking into what it means to discern or to condemn, to give some bit more of a clarity on these things. To discern is to see, to recognise or understand something that is not clear. And to condemn is to express complete disapproval of or to sentence usually someone to punishment. For example, pronounce unfit for service, or a building that is condemned as uninhabitable. It cannot be brought back. There is a clear softness and a hardness to these approaches, and particularly condemnation has a certain finality to it, which when we walk with Jesus, the finality is good news, not condemnation. So this was a particularly pivotal moment that distinguished Jesus' teaching as being different of the time in the Old Testament. Old Testament law was ruled by who is in and out, who is clean and unclean, who is praised and who is condemned, who is worthy to meet with God and who is banished to wait outside. The visual of dogs and pigs, particularly unclean animals of the time, adds some additional learning in discerning each other's hearts. When we're seeking to build and nurture relationships, some may work, some may not. There are harmful choices and mistakes we all make every single day. We hopefully want to amend these when we learn a better way, but for some, they're not at a point where they're ready for it. I experience this quite often with running our youth club here. We have a group of young boys who, on appearance, they seem to bully their way around, scoff the free food on offer, lose a lot of footballs on the roof. So if you spot footballs on the roof, it's not the seagulls trying to reenact the Euros. It's ones that have been accidentally kicked up there. On at least 3 occasions, this group, I've had to ask them to sadly leave the youth club early and then return the following week, as one of our values is that everyone in our youth club has a right to feel safe and to enjoy using the club. Quite often it's their loud and brash way of going about things, which is probably something that they do in their home lives and their school lives. Learnt behaviours to get them through. Many young people don't like that this group are welcomed back week after week, yet it's working, slowly but surely. It was always my hope that they would not feel rejected, but they would know that as long as they wanted to come back, they were always welcome to. Each week their slate gets wiped clean and they are welcomed just as they were the week before. And I think their current record is they can go until 8:20 when the club finishes at 8:30. They're doing well. They're learning to recognise their own presence around other people, that being loud and brash doesn't get you through every situation, and that everyone is deserving of having an enjoyable evening out. That's just a small insight into why we here at Riverside have a value that we believe the best of each other. That is, that we assume that our motives in any situation are well-intentioned and of good heart. Practicing this day in and day out helps us nurture a culture of discernment, of recognising each other, of compassion and for growth, rather than condemnation, which is punishment and loss. Whatever is motivating those boys' behaviour, giving them opportunities to learn from their mistakes and develop new ways of relating to people, is hopefully what they encounter when they come to our youth club and become part of the community. And that is the reason why we see so many young people that are drawn. When we have these values, they are given the opportunity to make mistakes, and that's okay. Believe in the best of them, even if others don't. I've had the joy to meet and spend time with many, many teenagers in a number of roles across many seasons of life. This current season, there are incredible young people whose zest for life, hope for the future, energy to have fun, enjoying all the little things, and the resilience in the face of situations they have no control over, keep me grounded in what it means to judge in discernment and not be tempted to condemn people. So perhaps this is what Jesus is teaching us in this section of his sermon. In our relationships, we should endeavour to approach each other with an intention to really see each other. I know sometimes when I talk to people, they say that if I make them uncomfortable because it feels like I'm trying to see into their soul. And I'm not going to lie, it's because I am. But with the best of intention. I always seek to try and do this, to really see, to recognise and understand people, because at some point I received both ends of that. I received condemnation and the loss of relationship. And then there were people who saw me, recognized me, and invited me in, no matter how I turned them away. It's easy to write people off, but it is so hard to continue to work at something when each party has the best of intentions and is committed to bringing out the best in each other. So, discernment then. Let's all go with, we're hoping we can do discernment rather than condemnation. So, how? How is this practical? How do we grow in discernment? How do we seek to understand other people? What makes them who they are in front of us in that moment, in this speck of time we are here on earth? I'd like to show you an incredible example of this and its impact, as shown by Dia Khan. Dia Khan is a Muslim filmmaker and activist. She once gave a TV interview about multiculturalism and was sent a huge wave of hate mail regarding her gender, her race, her faith. Many, many insults and threats of harm. In addressing this, she decided to go about it in a very unique and unconventional way. She travelled to the United States to seek to discern the people who would say she was their enemy. Members of the National Socialist Movement, other organisations that are considered to have extremist and racist ideology. She spent time listening to them, asking their stories, and also asking them challenging questions that needed to be asked face to face. After her time with them, and a few months after filming, she gets a call from Brian Culpepper, who was the PR officer for the biggest far-right white supremacy group in America, and someone that she had got to know during filming. And he said he had resigned from his position. One of the reasons he gave was that he had been very upset by the racist abuse she had received from others in the far-right movement. He said, "It really did bother me at a human level to hear some of the comments that were made to you." She reminded him of a previous interview they did, where she asked Brian if he would deport Dia if she were to live in a white ethno-state. He said he would. And here we'll pick up the recollection of that conversation with the video, then with the follow-up question now that he has left the organisation. So we have a video to show. We've had a few network issues, so do bear with me. But it has worked in practice. So Mark, could you take us to the video, please? I really recommend watching it. It's a documentary called White Right, Meeting the Enemy. And it is a bit more of an extreme example of what it means to discern rather than condemn. And it really takes quite, I don't know what kind of strength to possibly go through those conversations with people and meet people to have those kind of viewpoints when they're just some basic parts of who you are as a person. But the journey that she went on with some of these men, and to actually hear some of their reasonings, but also some of their stories, kind of where all of those viewpoints and that their own condemnation, where that came from, where it stemmed from, and all these stories of being left out, of fear, of suffering, of not being accepted, that were just externalized. It's all right if we can't play it. That's all right. The joys of technology, that just means you'll have some good homework. So you can find it on YouTube, White Right, Meeting the Enemy. It's about an hour long, And what is left in that conversation after Brian said that he had left the organisation as the PR officer, Dia asked him, so I'll pose that question to you again, that if he were to be in a white ethno-state, would he deport Dia for who she is? And he said, Dia, no, I wouldn't. No, I would not. And she said, what has changed? And he said, because you're my friend. He said, I've never had a friend of the Muslim faith, and you're the first. He said, we've gotten to know each other. So just in that incredible grace, mercy, compassion, bravery, and kindness that Dee has shown, people who saw her as evil, an enemy, just for existing, from condemnation to discernment. So that's why I've included the section of Matthew about ask, seek, and knock into this. It gives us a first stepping stone into developing our own discernment onto the next stage. Our empathy. I'm a big one for when I work with young people is I teach empathy. If there are situations where they fall out, I verbalise, well, this is from their perspective, and this is how it could make them feel. When young people quite often can't vocalise their emotions and how they feel about things. So many things are just, something's annoyed me, something's upset me, whereas it can include disappointment, feeling of betrayal, or feeling like they've been made small or that they can't do something. Empathy is one of the greatest things that we can have. And we all have it. We all have our own measure of discernment. And we always need to be seeking to grow it further. Thankfully, we've been given a helper, the Holy Spirit. And the fruits of the Holy Spirit particularly, we need that strength, we need that bravery, we need that resilience for our own relationships to grow and develop. We almost have a weight of, as we go through life day to day, there are either things that weigh on slipping into condemnation or slipping into discernment. And that's quite an active thing that we can be aware of in our own understanding of ourselves is, are there times when we're tired and weary and we just don't want to do it anymore? We just want to shut ourselves away from each other and ourselves and God. So we need to start somewhere. So building our resilience, really recognising what makes us who we are and unique. A practical exercise for this is something that I've included in notes for life groups. So if you're not part of a life group, do come and chat to the Connect table. And if you are in a life group, go. It's a very good exercise, just a self-reflective activity. You can either just do it by yourself in your own privacy, or you can kind of verbalise it and share it with your life group and kind of see what makes you unique and different and the same. So with that, we can continue to grow in our discernment. It will take everything we've got to not lose hope with relationships, fall into despair, apathy, resentment, and condemnation. To give ourselves patience, understanding, and empathise. Bring out the best in ourselves, as well as each other, over and over again. We can only do this long term with God's continued help and support. After all, coming to church on a Sunday morning is always, whenever I sit and listen to a talk, it's always something that I hope there'll be something that will really reignite my hope, even if it's just for the week ahead until next week. There's just something I want to take away and build on. This is the hope that we cling to, the person of Jesus Christ. And it's a lifelong challenge, whether we've been a Christian for 5 minutes, 50 years. Use this time to commit yourself intentionally. Ask God for his help in building discernment, to grow fruits of the Spirit within yourself. If there are condemnations that you need to set aside, either condemning yourself, condemning others, things that you just need to take off and pursue discernment. To wipe the slate clean, this is a good time and space to do that. Use this moment to ask God for a renewed hope in relationships. Whatever fruits you need to grow most to get there. Only you will know that between you and God.